You were warned. I've had people, apparently students feel it's a kind of their public duty to tell as many people as possible. So what are we going to talk about, those of you who've been at the receiving end of the public duty? There are 3 categories of product costs. And we've named them, have we not? What's the first one? Brett. Second one, Heidi. Cody, third. Manufacturing overhead. See how fast I can talk to so many of you? So, direct materials. Everything you can see, kick, touch, spit upon, or stick gum underneath for this particular piece of furniture, that is direct materials by definition. So, all the stuff you can touch, direct materials. Direct labor is all the people who make this. All the people who make it, who either put their hands on it or run a machine, that puts its hands on it. Okay? Those are direct laborers. So direct laborers must be people. And then manufacturing overhead is, these are the 3 categories of what that we're defining? Product costs. So manufacturing overhead is all other product costs. Okay? Manufacturing overhead are all other product costs. So we've got a couple of categories that are pretty easy for us to define: direct materials, direct labor. Manufacturing overhead is the category that's a little more difficult for us to define. Okay? Then, manufacturing overhead, it's useful to, let's talk about this. Oh, you know what? I skipped something, didn't I, on the last page? I'm really in a hurry to try and, what did I skip? The little box in the bottom right-hand corner? Yeah. Across the top, right, variable and fixed. Across the top of the box, let me do this. I'll make sure it all gets done properly here. Box. I'm just too excited. Variable, fixed, product, period. What the box is supposed to illustrate is that any cost that we might name or think about is both variable and fixed and a product or a period cost. So because we can actually do it now. Direct materials. Aubrey? Where's Aubrey? Did I just talk to you? Have I not yet talked to you? So the beef, if that's really what it is, in a McDonald's hamburger. Which box would that go into? Because the beef in a McDonald's hamburger, which of these 3 categories of product cost would that be? Direct materials, direct labor, manufacturing overhead. Direct materials, okay? So Scott, which box would that go into? Product cost, and then, do you need glasses? Me too. I need better ones. I'll have those by the end of this month, I need to go to the eye doctor again. Yes, sir? Product and variable, that's correct. It's a variable cost because McDonald's incurs costs for every new hamburger produced and sold. So it's variable, and it's also a product cost because it's a cost of what they sell. Okay? Good? Oh, I'm putting some people to sleep, though. So your cost as an accountant, who here is an accounting major? I guess I should ask, who here is not an accounting major? Because sometimes they do wander in here and are not lost. And so, they kind of wander in here on purpose. So everybody in here is an accounting major. So you all want to be accountants when you grow up. And so imagine you're an accountant for McDonald's. Your salary as an accountant for McDonald's, which box would it go into? It's a period cost? Yeah, and it is fixed. Katie, what were you going to ask or say? I was saying it's period fixed. Period fixed. So salaries are fixed. Wages, and we assume very simplistically in here that wages paid to direct laborers are variable. Even though in real life many of those laborers are part of subunions, which mean that their wages really are not variable. But for purposes of this class, and really for purposes of both the CPA and CMA exams, they're assumed rather simplistically to be variable. Okay? Wages are variable, salaries are fixed. Now, we can come on back to here. Direct materials, is it variable or fixed? Michael Newland. Variable. Pamela O'Kane, direct labor, variable or fixed? Variable. Manufacturing overhead, Christy Plankers, variable or fixed? Yes. Either one of those. Both the words both and yes would have been correct answers. Okay? Variable or fixed, yes or both. So it is both variable and fixed. Now what I want to do is I'm introducing terms. And I want to introduce a couple of terms here. Indirect labor. See, here's DL's direct labor, IDL, indirect labor. And actually, I did this in the wrong order. I'm going to cheat. Indirect materials. Okay? And now I'm not trying to suggest, and please be clear, I'm not trying to suggest that all forms of manufacturing overhead fit into these two categories. I'm just naming these two as categories that I especially want to just talk about because they're less intuitive and perhaps less well-known than other examples. Indirect materials are the cost of materials that are so small the company might not want to keep track of them on a per unit basis. What would that be? Stuff like the varnish on the top of this desk or this table. I mean, does, the salt on your serving of French fries? Does McDonald's, is that, clearly there's a cost to that, right? They're putting salt on the French fries. There's clearly a cost, but is it big enough for McDonald's to really worry about what's the cost of the salt on my serving of French fries, however big-sized it might be? Probably not. Yeah. So no. So salt on McDonald's French fries, an example of an indirect material. Clearly, it's something that's there, but it's not something that we're going to pay attention to the cost of. It's a judgment call on the part of McDonald's and whoever else in this table manufacturer. Another example, and that is manufacturing overhead. It is not direct materials. It is not direct labor. We're going to call it manufacturing overhead. Okay. Also, there's a category, indirect labor. Indirect labor are people who work in the factory but who do not touch the product. Who might those people be? Management is potentially manufacturing overhead, but they're not indirect labor. I think of laborers, because they're not laborers. I don't think of them as kind of laborers or workers. Janitors, lunch ladies. What were you going to say? Mechanics, potentially, yes. Yeah, and supervisors, though, again, a separate category. I mean, to me, the easiest example is people who are keeping the place clean and safe.